Hello, good evening, and welcome to Monkeys with Fire. How's everybody doing tonight? I hope you're all well. Hope you're enjoying the week so far. So we do have a special show this evening. We're going to have a live interview with Ways Unseen, the creator of this fantastic isometric and top-down art of fantasy locations, caves and caverns, and ways that have not been explored before. Really excited about tonight's interview. This is something that we've been trying to get together for a while now. So if you are an aspiring tabletop cartographer, you might want to go and grab your pen and paper, because we will be doing a little bit of a live drawing session after the initial sort of introduction and interview. So yes, get your materials ready, and yeah, we'll get some drawing, we'll get some exploring done. So without further ado, Paul, are you ready to join us? You are? Okay, we're getting a thumbs up. Let's bring you on in then. And good evening, Paul.
Good evening. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. And yourself?
Good, thank you. Very good.
Well, thank you so much for being able to join us this evening on the channel.
It's all right. Happy to be here.
As I say, I'm very much looking forward to this. This is something we've been trying to organise for a while now.
It does feel like it's taken a little while to make it come together, doesn't it?
It does indeed, but we're here. We're here. So, okay, so what we're going to do then is we're going to maybe just talk a little bit about what got you started in doing illustrations of fantasy locations and maps. Maybe take a look at a little bit of your early work and then going through to maybe some of the more recent. And then, if you're willing to do so, show us a little bit of how you actually put these fantastic illustrations and maps together.
I'll have a go.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Well, what we'll do then is we'll go to your screen so we can actually see what you have set up.
Okay.
So there we are. I guess, well, let's start from the beginning then. So, you know, what is your sort of background in art? Is this something that you did when you were younger? What got you started?
I would hesitate to say I've got a background in art. I never really studied it at school or anything. I didn't once I sort of made a decision about what subjects I was going to study, I just sort of let art drop off the radar.
Right.
But I always sort of enjoyed art, and sort of attempted to get like an art scholarship when I went to school, which didn't really work out, but I guess that's just a reminder that I did enjoy art from an early age. And then during my teenage years and my 20s, I just sort of stopped doing it, really, and forgot about it.
Right. I suppose, you know, life gets in the way a little bit, doesn't it? Jobs and careers.
They're that sort of thing, I suppose. And I've never really been, I mean, up until recently, it feels like it's changed a little, but in the past, I haven't been a particularly sort of proactive, motivated person. So, like, getting things off the ground off my own back was never really sort of something that I did. So it's only recently, really, that I've sort of got it together enough to actually do something with my life. There you go.
Okay, so that being the case, then what was the impetus? What prompted you to actually start?
Well, I think I suspect during lockdown, or I mean, not much before that, or maybe like the year before lockdown, I started just doing a little bit of drawing, like various random things. I think I was drawing like spaceships and little monsters and stuff like that. I think if you scroll back far enough in my Instagram feed, you'll eventually discover a monster or two and a spaceship here and there. So I was doing sort of stuff like that, and then I did the Inktober challenge. Have you heard of that?
Right. No, but go on.
It's a sort of an Instagram artists challenge where you try and draw something every day during October.
Okay, right.
So I did that one year, and I decided, I was like, well, I want to draw something that's sort of thematically consistent, that I can pick up every day, and I don't have to think too much about what to draw. And I decided to draw little overland maps, so just little islands and places. So I did that, and that was quite fun. And I think I put them all on Instagram, but beyond that, I didn't really know what I was doing with the stuff that I was producing. And then after that, last time we spoke, I sort of intimated to you that I didn't really remember why I started drawing the sort of more tabletop adventure adjacent like maps and stuff.
Yeah.
But I've now remembered that I was playing a game called 4 Against Darkness. Have you heard of that?
Oh, no, go on. Tell me about that one.
I'm going to struggle to fit it in because I've got my camera so low.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I was playing this game, and essentially it's the sort of game where you're delving into a dungeon with a group of adventurers and fighting creatures and doing all that sort of stuff. And part of this game is drawing the maps.
I saw that. Did it say it was a solo role play?
Yes, it's a solitaire dungeon delving pen and paper game.
Right.
And this is people who like 4 Against Darkness really like 4 Against Darkness. And there is a huge wealth of like supplements and resources around this game. Just more than, I mean, there are some people who buy it all, I think, but more than anyone could ever possibly practically use.
Right.
I started off with this core book, and then I started sort of drawing little dungeons, because you have to draw as you go. So I think this is one of my early ones. And then, can you see that okay?
Yes, yeah. So this looks, there's like individual tiles and little prompts for the rooms and maybe the creatures you've met within them.
Yeah, exactly. And then after a little while, I just sort of started taking a bit more time with the artwork. I mean, I still play 4 Against Darkness, and since I sort of went through this phase of drawing it nicely, I've stopped doing that now because you want to get through the game nice and quickly.
Right.
So I went through this phase of drawing them all sort of nicely, and then I think I did one that was like I really took my time over.
Wow.
And
there's quite a considerable jump in quality here.
Yeah, it was just making the effort, really. I mean, I realised that I did manage to sort of make it really good quite quickly out of the gate, but yeah, the only difference is I just sort of thought, oh, do you know what? I'm gonna take my time, and I think I probably looked at.
So is that what it is then? Is it just putting more time and slowing the process down that yields better results?
Yeah, I guess it probably was. I mean, maybe I do have, I'm not very good at being self-complimentary, but I guess I do have some kind of innate
it probably helps.
That helps. Yeah, but yeah, I think it was slowing down, taking my time. Now I'm all about trying to speed the process up, really, so I can produce more stuff for the commissions that I do.
But maintaining the same level, yeah.
Whilst maintaining the same level. And I think I went through a stage earlier this year of trying to speed it up in order to make my style a bit more sketchy.
Okay.
And then that sort of, I forgot about that, sort of went back to what I normally do.
Let's well, we're just going to say hello to Amberden, who's joined us in the chat, and he has a question here. So, are you drawing your own grids or pre-printed?
I'm not drawing my own grids. They are pre-printed. So sometimes I print grids out from the internet. So if it's an isometric illustration, then I mean, you can't see because I print very, very light grids out, or dot grids. This has got an isometric dot grid underneath it that I printed out. And then I do the same for hex maps. And then I've got books of these square grids. So again, you might not be able to see it here, but there's a dotted grid on this page. And that's from a book that I bought on Amazon.
Right. Okay. One thing I was going to ask later on is the sort of the tools of the trade, what you use and what you would recommend. So we'll probably come back to that. But thank you, Amadou, for the question. Thanks for joining on in. So essentially, it was starting off then with this solo role-playing dungeon delve game. But so tell us a little bit maybe about your background in tabletop gaming and role-playing. What type of stuff did you do? What do you currently do?
I in the part when I was quite a bit younger, I did a moderate amount of like role playing,
right?
But it was limited. I never played Dungeons and Dragons. I never really played any fantasy set games. Fantasy in the sort of traditional orcs and elves sort of context. I played games from a company called White Wolf. Do they call them World of Darkness?
Yes, it is. So it's the Vampire the Masquerade, and there's a werewolf game, isn't there?
Yeah. So I played mostly Vampire the Masquerade.
Very cool.
I think we probably played a tiny bit of mage and a tiny bit of werewolf, but mostly vampire. And then we sort of got into the live action role-playing series that White Wolf put out as well, which is called Mind's Eye Theatre, I think.
Right.
Played some of that, and then again, once I hit my 20s, just stopped.
Yes.
And so didn't really get anywhere near anything like that for a good 20 years or so. Yeah, and I'm getting back into it now, mostly through solo gaming, but
okay.
I also have a regular game that I play with my girlfriend and her and a couple of other people. So we do that every couple of weeks, which has been fun, but that's quite a recent thing. So yeah, sort of just starting to get back into role-playing, really.
Okay, and so out of your solo role-playing experiences, do you have any recommendations? We're always keen to know what other people think about games.
Oh. Wow. Well, I mean, 4 Against Darkness is great. For people who like drawing maps, the question is, what can I reach? Probably not much, actually. People who, if you like drawing maps, there's also Miru is a cool one that has a sort of a map drawing element to it. That's set in the future, in sort of like a post-apocalyptic future, but one where everything's nice. I can't remember what they call the genre, sort of like eco-punk or something like that.
Right.
You're on a quest to kill a god who killed your brother.
Wow.
And you have to draw the map. Yeah, I know. And you have to draw the map as you go. So that's Miru. That's really good. Note Quest is another good one if you like drawing maps. Yeah. No, because I played quite a few games for my own YouTube channel.
Okay.
I play solo games on. So I've got a lot of recommendations, and I could waffle on about that for ages if you really wanted.
Well, here we go. Amberden does actually have another question. Let's just bring it up here. How does 4 Against Darkness compare to the fighting fantasy books?
Well, 4 Against Darkness is much more sort of mechanical. It doesn't, by and large, it doesn't really have a narrative element to it. So you're just going through randomly generated rooms, fighting randomly generated beasties, finding randomly generated loot until eventually the boss of the dungeon is triggered, and then that particular session is sort of over if you survive, or if you don't survive.
Sounds almost video game-like.
It really is, yeah. I mean, and there are supplements that can add a narrative element to it, but it hasn't got a step-by-step narrative structure like a fighting fantasy book has got. So it's a very different sort of beast, really.
Okay.
Very replayable, much more replayable than the fighting fantasy books.
Right. Yes, because, well, I suppose with it being randomly generated, you never quite know what you're going to face in each room you encounter, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's supplements that add all sorts of stuff, so it keeps it fresh and interesting.
Sounds interesting. I'll have to go and check it out. Okay, so the illustration you've got on screen now, when did you do that?
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the stream, and it looks like is it sideways on, like, narrow on the screen? Is that okay?
It is, yes, yeah. Well, that's how we've set up. Yes, so it is in a sort of portrait mode.
Oh, okay, all right. So long as that's cool. Sorry, what was your question about it?
So when did you do this particular illustration, and was there a purpose behind it?
Yes, there was. This was, I guess, a couple of months ago, so it's fairly recent. I wanted to draw a little isometric town, I guess, for my patrons, and that's this one here, which I guess we can just about squeeze in. How's that look?
Yeah, I mean, we can see that. I mean, unfortunately, we'll leave the camera as it is. Amden's suggesting that sideways the landscape would be better because we'd see more, but it might mess everything up. Okay, all right. I might have to flip my camera around when we start drawing, because at the moment that's on its edge. But we'll worry about that when we get to it. So I drew this isometric picture. That's wonderful.
Thank you. And one of my patrons suggested drawing the interiors of the buildings.
Ah, okay.
And it hadn't even occurred to me to do that. And so that's what I did. And I finished up these little individual top-down maps. And I'm quite pleased with how they turned out. And so, that was a nice suggestion from
Okay, I mean, you're going from one picture to the other, and I've got so many questions now about the isometric, but we're going to stay with this top-down one first. No, it's absolutely fine. It's because it's just so wonderful. It's like instantly I see something and I want to go, well, what's that, and what's this, and what does that do, and how did you do that? So, going from the isometric, I'm assuming that you had an idea what each of these buildings represented. Maybe it was a fisherman's hut, or maybe it was like the mayor's house, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll bring that one back over. I think I imagined this one to be sort of a warehouse of some kind. I imagine this to be sort of a big residential house of some kind, and I think beyond that, and that was like a little houseboat maybe. So I guess, but it was a very, very sort of loose ideas in my mind. I don't get into the weeds too much with sort of like stories around the things that I draw.
Do you not? Right, okay.
So I've always sort of struggled a little bit with coming up with ideas and narratives and things like that, and it's just not necessarily my forte. I'm trying to get better at it, but
So my question then has got to be, how on earth do you start with something? Because it's not exactly a small scene that you've created there. It's pretty large.
No.
How do you start then?
I usually start with a vague idea of just a place I want to generally represent. And on this occasion, I wanted to draw some kind of rickety swamp town.
Right.
And I'm very pleased with how it came out. But if I'm honest with myself, it doesn't really invoke the idea of a swamp as much as I was hoping. It feels more like a little lake town.
I was thinking The Hobbit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think it's come out very nicely, but I still feel like I haven't really drawn like a stinky, falling down swamp town yet.
It's too nice.
Yeah, it's too nice, exactly. Yeah. It looks too pleasant. It looks like a nice place you might want to hang out.
Exactly.
Than sort of a dingy place that people are driven to live in because there's nowhere else better around. But, yeah.
Is there a pub?
There could be a pub. I mean, this could be a pub over here.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a pub there, then who would not want to visit?
Well, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, going back to your question, I mean, I have in my mind something I want to sort of work on, or a sort of location that I want to bring into the world, and then I just sort of expand it and build on it as I go, really.
So, because it's a little bit, it's difficult for us to see the entire page, but where do you start then? Because of course that must be the hardest point of when you've got this blank page in front of you. Do you sort of pick a point in the middle and go, okay, I'm going to build up from there, or is it in a bottom corner?
No, I mean, when I'm doing an isometric picture, I tend to just start with the large structures.
Okay.
So I think there's probably a decent chance that I just started sketching out a cube or a cuboid for that building. And then I would have started to just draw a flat surface alongside it, and thought, okay, well, that's probably the edge of the land here. And so then there's going to be another building over here, and start drawing another cube. So I sort of map out simple isometric shapes.
Right.
Let's try and do that. Let's see if we can get a bit more of it in. There we go.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, we can see.
So yeah, with the isometric, that tends to be how I do it, and I do sort of build it up as I go along. I won't really know what the full piece is going to look like until I get to the end when I'm doing a full-size page drawing like this.
So I guess it is a very sort of organic process. It's not pre-planned. It just evolves then, yeah?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and that's almost always how I tend to work. Yeah, I just sort of make it up as I go along.
Okay, now I mean, so do you start with doing it as a pencil sketch? Is it all pencils first before you then start doing any inking?
Yes, absolutely. Pencils first. And for something I don't really do detail with the pencil work. I just go straight in with the ink for any details. So I'll, any kind of object or boat or pile of rope or table. If I'm drawing a table, I tend to just draw again a little 3D cuboid that represents the table, and I'll remember that's what that's going to be.
Right.
So once all of the main shapes are sketched out, I just go for it. If there's anything that I'm sort of a bit more nervous about, I might sketch it out a bit more in pencil. So the trees, for example, was probably stressed about a little bit, and I would have drawn out the full shape of the tree, and maybe the boats as well, because boats were always a bit weird to draw. So I might have sketched those out of a bit more detail. But the pencil sketch that is done before I start to do the ink is as basic as I can make it, really.
Right. I mean, okay, so we go from the pencil, the basic shapes. You then have, is it like fine liner, sort of artist pens, I take it?
Yeah, absolutely. Up until now, I've been using fine liners, Unipin fine liners. I keep meaning to try other brands. I think I really should, but up until now, that's what I've been using.
I think I might have exactly the same pens there.
They're very popular.
Yes.
And I tend to almost, I tend to use just three. I've got the O2, which is the thickest, the O1, and then the 005 is the thinnest that I've got here. And then I sometimes use an 003 as well, which I think is the thinnest that you can get.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and those four pens are pretty much all I use. But, you know, that said, I've got all kinds of other stuff, but I'm very stuck in my ways, and I keep meaning to, like, have a weekend where I try out other materials and things.
Okay,
yeah,
well, that's interesting, because yes, I've got some things together for tonight. So I got myself an 01, an 005, and an 003.
Brilliant. Oh, well, there you go. That's very similar to what I've been.
So, but the sort of big question I have then is the shading. Now, how does that happen? Because, okay, here we go. Is these some kind of Sharpie type things, or something better, much better?
Yeah, these are pro markers, which is, I guess, sort of the felt tip pens that the professionals use.
Okay.
Or at least they seem to be priced for professionals anyway. They are an alcohol-based pen. So theoretically, I think you can use them, if you really know what you're doing, you can use them for blending and get quite nice effects. I basically just color in with them. But they're being alcohol-based means they're much easier to color with and avoid streaks.
I was going to say, because everything looks quite uniformed, apart from where you've changed a pen color for a different different tone of color, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is a couple of streaks on here that when you're doing a great big area like this, it can be quite intense. You just got to keep on going, and if you stop on a particular sort of forward line of what you're doing for more than 15 seconds, then you'll end up with a little bit of streaking. So you're constantly going, and my girlfriend knows to not talk to me if I'm shading in a large area on a map, because I can't stop until I've got to the end of it.
Right. And so I understand now, because of course, yes, ordinary felt tip pens you would have, and it would have different layers, wouldn't it? You would, as you maybe if your pen went over the previous layer slightly.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you do get that with these, but less so, and they're nicer to work with. So again, I'm very stuck in the mud, very stuck in my ways. So I really only use the cool grey range, and this is cool grey 1 to 3.
Okay.
Which I think are the only ones I've used on this map. So the water is cool grey 1. The cross section of the water down below and the shadows are mostly cool grey 2, and then I've added some darker shadows to highlight the edges using cool grey 3. And I've got a 4 and a 5 as well, but I don't use those quite as frequently.
And what sort of tip? Is it quite a sort of fat tip? Does it come to a nice point? What are they like?
They're double-ended. I don't use. I don't know why. Again, probably because I just don't change what I do. But they come with a fat tip end,
Okay.
which I don't use, and a thin tip end, which I do use. And they also do every pen, I think, also comes in a brush pen version.
Right.
And I accidentally bought a brush pen a couple of months ago, and they're more expensive. But I accidentally bought one of the brush pens, and I'll see if I can show you. But the end of the pen is
Quite fine, isn't it? Oh, but in quite
soft
spongy, yeah.
Yeah, and immediately fell in love with the brush pens. They're
Right.
just really, really lovely to work with. So now I use even more expensive pens, apparently. There you go.
So, do you mind me asking then, how much do these cost?
Oh, not. So I couldn't say off the top of my head. I think probably like maybe around £3 for a regular one, and maybe
That's
like
not that bad.
£4.
Yeah.
Not too bad, is it? And
Yeah.
about I get through them. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And about £4.50 for a brush pen, I think.
Right. That's not, I'd already jumped to like 10-15 pounds a pen.
Oh, there you go.
so I'm surprised.
Yeah, not too bad. And that's really all I spend my money on in terms of art materials.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. I guess, of course, yes, your pads of paper. I think you said you get those from like sort of Amazon, can't you? Isometric.
Yeah, the ones I've used up until now are very cheap, and well, I can show you the brand that I use. And to be honest, they were all bought for me for gifts, and I'm still churning through the pads that I've been given.
Okay.
There's a company called Rhodia, and they come in all sorts of sizes. So that's a little, what's that, A6, I guess?
Yeah, yes.
Or something like that. But I've got another pad that's half the size of that, which is quite dinky and fun to use. And then I've got full A4 size pads as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're super cheap, and I don't see myself running out anytime soon, with the exception of this mid-size pad, which I love drawing in, and I'm already, well, I say already, I'm halfway through that pad, so I've drawn quite a bit in there.
Is there a few things you can flick through? Let's take a look. Let's see what's in the pad. I mean, do you actually then take your drawing materials? Do you draw away from home, or is it purely a home thing?
No, I do sometimes. I mean, we haven't been on that many holidays because of, I guess we're out the other side of COVID now, but we've only just really started going on holidays again, but I will take them with me. And sometimes when I go around to my girlfriend's parents' house, I will take my pads with me and sit in the corner quietly while they do their puzzles and whatever else they do.
Yes.
I can quietly sit there and draw. So it's nice and portable, and it is cool to sort of take it with me. And I think the majority of these are up on my Patreon as well. And so I had a brief dalliance with colour there.
Oh, right, yes, yeah. So do you ever use any sort of digital tools once you've got it and maybe scanned it on or taken a photograph of it? Do you do any digital work on them?
I scan them in, and then I am not a digital artist by any stretch of the imagination. I don't really know what I'm doing. I just I use a free piece of software called Krita, Krita, to clean them up, basically, to remove the dots and just sort of any bits of the scan have ended up sort of shady or darker, or sort of, to lighten them.
Yeah.
Very, very basic sort of stuff, and to add a logo. That's all I do, really. I'm not sure Krita's the most appropriate piece of software to do that, but I find it easy to use, so I use that.
That's fine, yeah. I do marvel the texture work that you do on these illustrations, because I've seen a digital version of those, and I'm thinking, wow, to have hand done it, that takes forever and takes a lot of consistency of design, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting to look back on these old ones because I've done some sort of cross hatching in the shade,
Right.
and I've stopped doing that completely. I think I've pretty much decided to stop doing this old school line hatching in the negative spaces.
Right.
I'm doing dots now instead, which I think I prefer. I think I've now decided I prefer. So here's a more recent one.
So, I mean, obviously before, well, it's actually how I sort of was first introduced to you on Instagram, which of course, for anybody who wants to go and follow Paul, it is it ways.unseen on Instagram? I think there's a dot in there, isn't there?
Yep, exactly right.
Yep.
Yes. But if you search for Ways Unseen, where you should find me.
Yes, so do go and give Paul a follow there. Go and look at all these amazing pieces of art. But it was part of I was doing just a general search because there is a big scene, isn't there, of sort of fantasy cartographers. And I suppose my question is there trends? Is there styles? Do certain elements in cartography go in and out of fashion?
I don't know.
just with you saying that you've moved from the cross hatching to the dots, is that
I don't know. I mean, certainly I think some people consistently do one or the other, I think. And I think I started I was never entirely happy with the cross hatching. Like, I thought it kind of looked cool, but it sort of detracted from the picture a little bit, I thought. And I'd seen a couple of people do the sort of dotty style. I wish I could tell you names, but without looking at my phone, which I'm filming this on, I can't remember things. And I think I basically copied this style off someone and then thought, actually, do you know what? I think that looks better. So that's how I sort of honed my personal style. But I think probably, people have been drawing maps for role-playing games for 40 plus years at this point. And sometimes I don't feel like I'm fully sort of hooked in to the full history, the rich history of like role-playing game map creation. I just do what I do, really.
And you do it very well, and that's
Thank you.
And that's why there's so many people following your Instagram and supporting you on Patreon. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's been fun, and it's been very nice. The response of the communities online, other map makers, as well as appreciators of stuff like this, it's been very rewarding to interact with people and to build up relationships with people.
Yeah. Do you feel that social media has played a large part in your sort of journey?
I don't know whether I would be doing this stuff if social media didn't exist, if I'm honest.
Right.
It was sharing like those the 4 Against Darkness maps. I think I literally threw a couple of those up on Instagram and were like, oh, these are my 4 Against Darkness maps that I've been drawing. And, people seem to like them. And that sort of flicked a switch in my brain and made me think, oh, maybe I could, use this as my artistic outlet.
Yes, because I think we all desire some sort of form of creativity in our lives, don't we? So
Exactly, yeah. And I just sort of get a kick out of imagining places and trying to make them a little bit different and a little bit interesting and a little bit unexpected. And yeah, that's what I like doing.
So do you have a favourite illustration that you've done? One that you're super, super proud of?
Well, I mean, I've already shown you the Swamp Town interiors. I am proud of the Swamp Town interiors. I guess I'm quite proud of the one that we are just on there. So that was I decided to draw a little underground tavern.
Oh,
so
right.
This is the entrance to the underground tavern. And then this is the first floor as you go down into the tavern, so the main tavern floor. And then below that, there's another floor with a couple of little bedrooms, people who are staying the night, and then there's a little gambling den over to the side there.
Nice.
And then I did a nice sign for it as well, and I put it all together into a sort of A4 sheet. So yeah, I'm quite proud of that one. Yeah, there's probably other ones I'm proud of. I did a hex map recently for the first time, and I was quite proud of that. That led to me producing a hex map for a solo game called Sandworm, which is by a creator called Psycho Headcheese, a guy from Canada.
Right.
So I did a map for his game. I'm quite proud of that. I did a map for the promotional material of the Norwich board game convention, which just had their first con this weekend just gone.
Okay.
And my map appeared on various bits and pieces around the convention. So I was quite proud of that. Walking around the convention, seeing my map around the place was pretty awesome.
I can imagine. Amberden's just asking, can you show one of your hex maps? Do you have maybe one close at hand?
I do. Give me 1 second. I mean, I haven't done that many. So this is pretty much it, apart from the one I did for the game. Go.
So, have you given a name to this land? Is there any little stories? Just none of that.
No stories, no name. I mean, I think this was. I keep meaning to do some more, and sort of imbuing subsequent hex maps with a little bit more sort of unexpected twists. But this was like, for my first one, I was just sort of trying to nail down a particular style.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, I knew what I wanted it to look like, and there's probably little bits of it that are recognizably sort of my style. But this was, I guess, sort of like a practice run, really. So we've got a little tower on the island here, and up here we've got some pits of some kind, and a little town. But yeah, there's not much in the way of narrative around it. I just sort of hope that other people, when they use it, can sort of fill in the gaps themselves.
And so again, Amberden's asking, is it a pre-printed hex grid pad that you're using? Or? No,
it's not. This sheet was printed out from the internet. If you Google hex sheet generator, then there's a couple of like online apps, like websites, where you can sort of set the thickness and darkness of the line,
right,
and how big the hexes are, and they're quite flexible. So yeah, this is printed out on my printer.
And as you said, you just do a very low, maybe a draft print, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. I keep it to like a light grey. This is actually a bit darker than what I usually do, so you can actually see the hexes. Right.
That's wonderful. That's really, really good. I like it.
To do more.
shall we have a go at doing some drawing?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Because you're going to be explaining this to a complete noob. So I've got some things together. Let's see. Let's hope this works.
Okay. I'm just going to be rearranging my camera for a second so that it's my way up. But hopefully that's not too disconcerting. There we go. Just move my light as well so that we don't get too many shadows.
So I have my page. I've done exactly what you've just been suggesting. That I found an isometric grid as an image online and printed it out in draft. So.
Oh, okay. Are we going isometric? I thought you said we were going top.
Yeah, we'll do top down, but that's the paper I managed to get here. So I'll just work with what I've got.
Yep. We can always do isometric as well, but yeah. Okay.
I thought that maybe top down might be a little bit easier.
Yes, it probably is. Yeah. Okay. So, I can see your one of your comment on there, saying, "Have I tried grids in a light blue?"
Yeah.
I know some people do use light blue grids. I mean, who's the big guy who does the amazing isometric ones? Mind goes blank sometimes. Parves Peculiar. Parves Peculiar is fantastic. And he uses blue grids and then removes them quite easily during the scanning process. So I have considered doing that, and I probably should give it a go. Worth going to Parves Peculiar's website. He's very generous with his maps. He gives away a lot of stuff on there, and he has blog pages with tips and hints and guides as to how he does his drawing.
Oh,
it's a very good place to start. That's Parves Peculiar. And also a very obvious inspiration to me calling myself Ways Unseen.
Yes. I did kind of catch that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so what did you want us to have a go at putting together?
Well, the idea being is we're going to do a top-down map. The reason behind this is because I think it's maybe a year or so ago on the channel, we created using the Games Master terrain set from the Army Painter. I have one of the sets here. We created some fantastic terrain tiles. Okay. And so my intention being is that what we create tonight, I'm going to actually make as a physical prop for some miniatures. So that's the plan, to take the design and to do a nice illustration, but then to make it into a three-dimensional piece that my minis can be fighting on. That's the idea. So it's going to be a wilderness or woodland sort of scene. So that's the kind of setting that we're going to go for.
But we want some ruins of some kind in there, right?
I would imagine so, yeah.
Sure. Okay. How are we going to go about this? We just...
Well, if you start and explain what you're doing and how you're doing it, and I'll try and emulate on my side. We'll see how we do. Okay.
All right. Before we do that, let me just work out how I'm going to sort of do the ruins, because we've got a couple of different options in terms of how I draw them. Now, recently, when I've drawn top-down ruins, I've sort of gone for a very sort of minimalist style to them.
Okay.
I've been doing them like that.
Ah, yes.
So I tend to do sort of just little simple walls.
Yep.
With a few piles of rubble knocking around. Where's that other one? There we go. stuff like that. So that
Yes.
is option number one. And then option number two is we make it more sort of draw bricks and things, more like that.
Well, maybe we start with option one, and if time allows, maybe we try and incorporate an option two in there somewhere as well. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes.
Do you want like elevation gain? Do you want some bits to be on higher ground and lower ground, or does that not really? Do you want it all flat? If you see what I mean.
Let's do it all flat, but there's no. I suppose there's no reason why things can't be elevated, because of course this will be created with layers of foam, so I can stack the foam on top of one another, so things can be higher up for sure. So we can have steps, things like that.
Yeah. It might be nice to have 2 levels in there. I feel like it always adds a bit of interest. And do you do water in your sort of models, or
absolutely? Water. We can do water for sure.
Cool. Okay. All right. So I quite like with my ruins to have them sort of hidden in amongst like trees. I like to imagine the landscape having sort of reformed around the ruins.
Mm-hmm.
So having sort of trees in and around them, and the same with sort of areas of water, so ponds and lakes having sort of formed through ruins and stuff like that. So maybe I should try it fairly big as well. What are we going to do? Okay, well, I guess I would start by sort of drawing, if I was being sensible about it, drawing out the shape of the building before it was ruined. And I don't necessarily always do that. I sometimes just sort of draw the ruined bits, but maybe if you draw... Can you see that?
Yeah, no, I can see that. So just give me an idea then, because I'm assuming, is that you're on grid or isometric as well? What sort of scale are you doing this at?
Oh,
give me, because I've got a ruler down here. So what is that about? Is that an inch, 2 inches along?
This that I've drawn here is about 3 centimeters.
3 centimeters. All right, I can see that.
Yeah, if I show you the end of my pro marker, you can see about the length of the lid.
Okay.
So I mean, to be honest, that is probably bigger than I normally draw.
I'm actually just
but I
looking
think maybe scaling it up a little bit for the benefit of the video might be a good idea.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to start there. I'm going to work with my little dots because I can see them easily enough.
Cool.
So we're going to go with that. How does that look? Yeah, I can see a line there. That's good. So, see, I've instinctively just gone for using a ruler. You don't use a ruler, do you?
No, I very rarely use a ruler.
Right.
I tend to go freehand. I like, I like them to look a little bit more sort of organic, and I go out of my way to sort of try and make the shapes inconsistent and not too straight when I actually do the ink work. Right.
Okay. I'm not going to use a ruler then. So, what are you doing? You're doing extra little bits there.
Right, but what I was thinking was we could have a break in the land, so sort of like a bit that designates that this is higher than this bit, and draw a sort of a little cliff in between.
Okay. So, is this some sort of steps coming down at the side of the main structure?
No, it's not. That's going to be a sort of an extra bit of the building.
Okay.
Or of the ruin.
So put that in here.
But I was thinking of maybe extending it up to the cliff so that the ruins sort of went up, and then there was maybe some rubble at the bottom of the cliff. Maybe
where
there was
it's
sort
collapsed.
of Exactly. There was like a seismic event, and the building sort of collapsed over this little sort of rift in the land that opened up. So this here is going to be a little cliff.
And so that's just drawing another line to give it some sort of depth, I guess, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So if you imagine here, we've got the bottom.
Yeah.
And here we've got the top
of
the cliff. Yeah, and then I've got quite a sort of a distinctive little cliff style that I haven't been able to move away from. My cliffs tend to look like that.
Oh yeah.
Sort of, they're quite sort of stylized and not very realistic, but that's just sort of the way it's ended up, really. So I probably wouldn't bother doing this in pencil normally, but then I'll just sort of work out a few places where there are sort of little cracks and crevices along the cliff. Yeah, and that'll be the cliff.
Rogue is saying, I like the look of the cliff style.
Thank you. Yeah, and then I guess I might just extend this out so that it was some kind of larger building. Maybe it was a temple or something. And then we can have some rubble at the bottom of the cliff.
Okay.
Where it fell away. There we go.
So rubble, is it just like little ovals that you do there?
Yeah, I've just drawn a bunch of little, ovals and irregular shapes. Okay. All right, then I guess I would start. Are we all good? Am I going too quickly?
No, it's fine.
Yours as well. Looking good. And then I probably would start to think about which bits of this ruined building remain, because you want some bits to not be there, I guess. So when you render this 3D, then I guess you would have upright bits of ruined wall, but you want some gap and some bits that have fallen away. Yeah, and actually, there you go. I put a little bit of roof on that one there.
Yes, no, I see it. Yes, so that's cool.
So we could have. So are we going to go on the inside or the outside? Maybe we should go on the outside. So not there. So of our original line, I'm just going to start drawing some bits in.
Okay. So it's just sort of extra.
There.
That's going to crumble away there. Thank you, Roger. I'm having a go. Maybe I don't know if you've got pen and paper there. Are you having a try? Okay, no, I can see that. So let's just put that here. How about you, Amberden? Are you having a try as well? Oh yeah, it's round on this side as well.
I always do this. I've tried to film myself drawing a few times, and I always end up setting the light up on the wrong side of me so that everything goes into shade, which is annoying. Let's try and move that around.
And we can have a piece down here. I actually, only because it reminds me of an old piece of scenery from Games Workshop.
Okay.
And so I'm going to take your inspiration on your last one. I'm just going to See, I'm already moving away from the teacher. I'm going to put
Cool.
I'm going to put in a broken piece of wood on this side here.
Oh,
there
nice.
you go. Because I like
Brilliant.
that. I think that's cool. This is not particularly great, but that's okay. We'll come back
That's
to that.
all right.
I
I
like
think I'm
that.
going to sort of add a little bit of like internal wall as well,
All right.
which I guess would be cool for tabletop skirmishes and stuff. So you've got like things to sort of hide behind and
Yes.
move
yes.
through.
So actually, with that in mind, then let's do that here. And yeah, just a little piece on here. I see what you mean about doing this being quite relaxing and yeah.
Absolutely. That's another benefit of doing this. It's quite meditative, and you know, once you know what you're drawing, you can do it while watching telly or listening to podcasts and stuff like that. So you know, I can watch TV and feel like I'm being productive.
Yes.
Like drawing at the same time, as long as it's not a TV show with subtitles, which sadly I don't watch as much of now because I can't draw and read subtitles.
Exactly. Yes, you've got to concentrate. You've got to concentrate on one thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so do you, I guess we're going to add some trees around this as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So how do you do a tree? How do you do a tree?
So my trees look like this. And again, only today I was looking at somebody else's trees, and I was sort of coveting their trees and thinking they looked really nice.
Right.
I'm thinking, and I noticed that that person shaded their trees a little bit differently to mine, and I was like, oh, I'm going to give that a go. But this is what my trees tend to look like at the moment. And at this stage, I tend to just sort of try and draw irregular circular shapes. And actually, they're quite regular in that one, but I've been trying to make my trees a little bit less regular.
I see how some of your trees have, like, there's two of them close together, isn't there? It's not just one tree, there's actually different types of, so they're grouped together into twos and threes.
Ones and twos and threes. So yeah, we've got a little three are there, the two are there.
Do you try and sort of stay consistent within certain, let's call them terrain elements? Is there a consistency of how you try and do stuff? So, you know, the one trees always kind of look like a one tree, the twos always look like a two, or do you try and randomize everything?
I think, I mean, there's definitely a consistency in terms of the style of tree that I draw, in that they're sort of cartoony, really. They've got the little sort of like little, how would you describe that sort of, this sort of effect?
Yes.
And then sort of subsequent layers inside with a slightly finer pen.
Right.
So that is definitely consistent. I try, in terms of the overall shape of the tree, I'm trying to mix it up a little bit more these days. But also, you know, the positioning of the trees as well. So in that one I just showed you, there's not many sort of like inside, but I quite like the idea of trees having sort of reclaimed the interior of the space.
Right.
So I might draw sort of one there, and I also quite like the idea of a tree having sort of trees or bushes, because you can't really tell. They might be trees, they might be bushes. I like the idea of them sort of blocking entrances off.
Yes. And
then, you know, because you could still get through there, but maybe you wouldn't. immediately see that that's an entrance. And so by doing that, I feel like I've immediately made this space a little bit more interesting. You've got the interior looking out over the lower ground, but it can't be accessed that way easily. And now we've only got sort of two smaller ways into the interior space, or you can force your way through this tree. But so that's the sort of level that I end up sort of creating little narrative stories for myself. Like, you know, I might not think of the name of the person who used to live in this house or the bandits who now hide out there, but I sort of think about how it could be sort of used in a narrative way.
Yes.
And try and sort of make the shapes more interesting to support that.
And potentially, even if it never happens, but for the players that might have been exploring this area, you know, what are the challenges that they're going to face because of the actual terrain features? Yeah.
Exactly. That's what sort of drives me and keeps me interested in drawing new places, rather than sort of more nailed down narratives connected to the places.
Sure. Chat is suggesting that the swirly pattern that for the trees is called a swoosh because you make a swooshing noise as you draw it.
Did I? I'm known amongst my friends for sort of making little noises when I'm concentrating on things. So they would be amused because I didn't even realise I did that.
But it is a required thing. It's what gives the tree its look. So swoosh away.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a couple of trees there, and then probably I would try and balance it out with some more. So maybe we'd have one here.
That's a much larger tree. I like that.
Yeah, and a couple down there. Maybe one over here to balance it out a little bit. How's that?
Yeah, let's get one over here then.
So I feel like maybe I should sort of move on to doing a little bit of like ink so we can push it forward and have something satisfying.
Yes.
When we're finished.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. So I guess
which size have you used?
Do you know what? As you've asked that, I did have an 01, but I think I'm gonna go for an 02. I do tend to err on the side of caution when I'm doing the main shapes. I'll use a finer pen and then go over it with a thicker pen if I feel I need to, which probably wastes a little bit of time, but for the purposes of the video, I'll go to a slightly thicker pen, which will, you know, speed it up and make it a bit more satisfying. But if you've got the 01 going,
I've got it. Yes, that's what I'm doing. Yeah. So you're putting all the walls in, yeah?
Yeah, I've got all my walls ready. I think I've got all my walls. And actually, what I haven't done, I'm going to throw in. Do you know what? I'm going to lose this bit here. And I'm going to just replace it with a little bit of rubble.
Oh, okay.
Just to make it feel a bit more ruiny. And I might put a little bit of rubble against this wall over here as well. Just a little bit. Yeah, so I'm just going to draw in the main ruined wall bits first. And as I do it, I'm just sort of keeping it a bit wobbly.
Right.
Not too straight.
Yes, I can imagine you can get hold of modelling lots of little polystyrene or styrofoam bricks. So you can either build these walls with a complete section of styrofoam and do modelling and using your pencil to etch in textures, or using a rock from the garden. Or you get yourself, as I say, these little styrofoam bricks, and you can build it up individually, and of course that's an amazing effect.
Right. Oh yeah, no, I've seen people do that. It obviously takes a lot of patience, I guess.
Oh, very much so,
In
yeah.
fact, I recently had some awesome individual take one of my isometric pictures and create it, like did what you guys do, created the physical like little
Oh,
diorama
amazing.
for game, and just he the accuracy of his representation of what I did is just astonishing, like down to like individual cracks on the paving stones
Right.
were all exactly as I had drawn. It's astonishing.
So you're putting in some little rocks.
Chucking in some rocks.
So I'm going to put some in here.
Yeah, coming along. And I'm going to do the rocks down at the bottom of the cliff as well.
Okay. So most of your illustrations, I would say, are sort of fantasy themed.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing anything different into a different sort of theme, a different genre?
Yes, definitely. I would very much like to do that.
What do you think you might try?
Well, I'm quite keen. The hex map I did for the game Sandworm, which you can find on Sandworm. If you Google Sandworm itch.io, you can find that game, or you can Google Sandworm on Drive-Thru RPG.
Yeah.
And you'll find it. That is a modern setting. So the hex map that I drew for that had some electricity pylons, a little modern town, a gas station, a car like scrapyard, a few other bits and pieces. And I think that's my first sort of foray into sort of modern maps, and I'm definitely keen to do more. I'm a big fan of post-apocalyptic stuff.
Right.
So I would like to do a post-apocalyptic thing of some kind at some point. That would be cool. It's just waiting for the opportunities or the time to arise to do it, really.
Mystical Unicorn Painting is asking, have you ever done any overview maps, like a top-down of a continent type of thing?
Not really. I mean, I haven't got my earlier little maps to hand, unfortunately, but I did some sort of like landscape maps with mountains and forests and things like that early on. But it's been like a couple of years really since I've tried anything like that, and I do want to get back to it. It would be cool to do some stuff like that. But there's so many map styles and so little time.
Yes, indeed. I mean, of course, as soon as somebody says a continent type thing, I'm instantly thinking of Middle Earth. I mean, it's got to be the ultimate fantasy map, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, that would be very cool to do something like that. Yeah. Okay, so I've started to do the cliff. And I don't always do this on cliffs, but I've sort of think it's a good idea to make the edge feel a little bit more organic by sort of breaking the line up slightly occasionally.
Oh, yeah. Because that's like the tufts of grass or something, isn't it? So I've messed up on that already, but I will remember that for next time. Do you do that on the bottom part as well, or?
I think I'm going to. I don't always, but I'm
All
going
right.
to.
Let's give it a go then.
Yeah, I've always struggled with doing grass on top-down maps because it's like, what does grass look like from the top? So, yeah, I've always never been sure about how to represent grass. These are the these are the challenges of the cartographer. Um,
Mystical's
okay,
asking. Oh gosh, this is an interesting one. Someone who knows a little bit about maps, it would seem. Have you ever seen the ones where they pour rice or something on the paper and trace round areas to
I
create
have.
it?
Yeah,
What is that? Why would people put rice on their paper? What's going on?
to create an organic sort of continent shape?
Ah,
So you
right.
sort of take it out of your own hands, and you're not responsible for it at all. So you take a fistful of rice,
Yeah.
drop it on a piece of paper, and then just draw around the rice wherever wherever the grains are sort of clumped together, and then you've got your continent map sort of like good to go.
Wow.
Um,
That's cool.
I have seen people do that. It is very cool. Again, rubbish with names, but there's a couple of brilliant um, fantasy map drawers on Instagram. I might give you a list of people who I like.
We can put it
and then
into
you
the
can share
details.
after
Yes.
them. Yeah. Right. So I've switched to a finer pen now
Oh, okay.
because I'm going to do a couple of sort of cracks and crevicey bits on the
Yeah.
cliff.
And do you break these
Hopefully
lines up as well?
Yeah, I sort of, when I'm drawing the cliff lines, I try and sort of zig in and out a little bit. And then I sort of use the bits, the little bits where I've zigged, as sort of cracks and sort of lines in the cliff.
Okay.
And sometimes those lines might run all the way to the bottom and the top, or sometimes they might be a bit more like a crack and they'll stop halfway.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And then I use those as sort of guidance for my shading a little bit. My shading in my maps tends to not be particularly realistic. Like I'll try and make sure that I have like a light source, and my light source tends to be up and to the left. But then if I want to highlight something and use my shading to make something look pretty, I'll just do it and ignore logic.
Yes, the rule of cool, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that bugs some people, but I'm more than happy to just ignore reality.
Mystical is suggesting, let's just go here. One person to take inspiration from is Anna B. Mayer. She's amazing at creating landscape maps. Somebody to take a look at.
Yeah. Anna B. Mayer. Okay. I don't think I've seen her before. I'm just looking at her stuff now.
Mystical, you'll have to watch the rerun of the video. We looked at a lot of Paul's maps right at the beginning. So yes, there is shading, there is stippling and crosshatch. Rogue is saying, watch the VOD.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll get to a bit of shading at the end of this. Fingers crossed. So maybe time to do a couple of trees.
Yes. Do you jump back up to the thicker size on that, or?
Yeah, I'm going to use a thicker size for the outside line,
Yeah.
and then a thinner size for the interior leafy bits.
Okay.
And I'm going to use an O2, although in that one I've definitely used. In fact, here I think I've used a thinner than 01. I think I've used 005 for everything.
Right.
But I tend to use 01 for the exterior and then 005 for the interior.
Right,
And I'm going
right.
to use O2. So I'm going to go a bit thicker for this one.
And this is lots of swooshing, isn't it? So I've got to get the swoosh,
Yeah.
swoosh, swoosh.
Yeah, and I try to sort of mix my swooshing up so that they're not all a regular shape.
Mm.
And yeah, sometimes I won't do it on this one. Maybe on this one, I might have bits where the swoosh goes into the tree, for want of a better description, like that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's cool.
And here, this one, I've broken the swoosh up, so we've got these sort of trees. These two trees are sort of blended together.
Yes. Ah, you have not got two trees. I'm going to add another tree on them. Have you ever done trees then? Because these are obviously assuming that the trees have got leaves. They're full of leaves. What about trees that don't have leaves?
You know what? I don't think on a top-down map I've tried that yet. I tend to think they don't look that good, but obviously at some point I'm going to end up with a context where I need bare trees.
Yeah.
But I've done them in the isometric. Like if you remember the, where did I just put the?
I suppose if you're
town
post-apocalyptic, you might need it.
Had a couple of
yes.
Swamp Town, a couple of bare trees, but in a top-down, I haven't yet attempted it.
So I'm going to do this one to have an additional. So I'm going to do this side. And then, oh, maybe I should get the pencil going. So in fact, it wants to be like that, doesn't it? And I do that, and then come out of here. See, and now I just feel like I'm talking to myself now. It's already happened to me.
Having a bit of a Bob Ross moment.
Yes, that's it. It's a happy little tree.
Yeah. We'll just. Have you seen the memes on Facebook where he's like drawing like an orc raiding army, and he's like, I think we'll just have a couple of happy little Uruk-hai down here, and they're just screaming with like a blood rage.
Well, Bob just makes it all look so easy and so peaceful.
Yeah.
No, I like that. Kind of. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, I like that.
Good.
Oh yes, I like your one there. Oh, actually, yes. See, the one down in the bottom sort of left denotes, or I read it as height, that one is higher than the other.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I suppose you're right. Yeah, absolutely. That would make sense.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool. All right. Got some trees.
Got some trees. So then doing some leafy bits in the trees.
So you've gone for a smaller pen then?
Yeah. I start in the middle.
All right.
Doing and then just sort of do little swooshes that are sort of broken up, and just try and keep it irregular. And I think, to be honest, I've got more irregular recently with these little lines on trees. Like this was some months ago that I did this one, maybe 6 months ago, and I think they're very the trees are very regular with the lines. But
yeah,
now
mine's too regular. Mine looks like one of those licorice all sort type things.
Yeah. But I think it's in terms of doing sort of marks and sort of like visual noise. It's very much a journey that I still feel like I'm on, and I see some of the sort of the marks that other artists make, and I'm quite jealous of how sort of effortless
Yes.
they make it seem. Yeah, it's definitely just that is quite a skill.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. I like that. That's... I mean, ultimately, as long as you're having fun with it, that's what counts, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And so we've got to start in the middle. I suppose if you do sort of desert scenes, you have to learn how to do sort of palm trees. That'll be something.
Yeah, I haven't done that's palm trees have been at the back of my mind because I like definitely inspired by the idea of jungle scenes.
Yeah.
So yeah, haven't got round to palm trees yet, or sort of big leafy vegetation, and palms and ferns and things like
Ferns.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to get to. I think I just started working. Well, a few weeks ago, I did a small sewer map for the first time. Like the fantasy sewer map is a bit of a role-playing game staple.
Yes.
And I've never done one before. And so I did a little one as a practice run, and I'm just now working on a larger sewer map based upon the little one.
Okay.
And I mentioned this just because there's always so much to get to. So yeah, this is my first foray into sewer maps.
That's good. Yeah.
And then what do I want to do after that? I've never done like a dwarven mine. I'd quite like to do a dwarven mine with like mine carts and tracks lying around.
Nice. Yes. I remember building a little dwarven mine when I was a kid, for my miniatures, because of course, you know, Lord of the Rings upbringing, so you've got to do the mines of Moria, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And the bridge of Khazad-dûm.
Yes.
There you go. It takes a little bit longer to do the detail stuff.
Yes, you see now, that's so I'm just watching you now. You've got considerably more detail, but of course that gives more of an impression of the leaves and the foliage and lines.
Yeah,
I probably need to do a few more, build it up.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can probably go even denser, like maybe on this one. Try just going a little bit more. But now I've gone very circular. Which probably doesn't matter. Sometimes you find yourself getting sort of annoyed with something you've done, and then you realise no one else is going to notice.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Trees almost done.
Yeah, that's good looking good. Oh, yeah.
There we go. Okay, so I mean that's almost everything. I mean I tend to do. I don't know if this is going to show up, but I tend to try and do little sort of stony patches.
So what's the technique for doing that?
I'm just doing
little dots?
I mean, it's so small. I'm just doing little dots and small like stones with that are the outline of the little stone. So if I did it bigger over here, it'd be this little little messy bits, so you haven't got big blank spaces with nothing in. And then I might also, certainly if we had paving slabs and this was in a cave, I'd throw in like a few different cracks as well. You could probably do that here as well. So I might just do a little crack like that.
Well, I was thinking of actually putting paving stones in on the the main structure. So is that just a case of just creating squares and then just putting little, as I say, little cracks in there?
Oh yeah, in here. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's do that. And again, because this is sort of a ruin, I would probably not do all of it. So I tend to, I try and think about each individual slab. I won't outline each individual slab, but sort of try and think about it as I'm drawing it. So there you go. So it's a bit broken up, a little bit irregular. And then do another one there. And then a couple of them can have cracks on them. Again, sort of not like solid lines. Not a solid line. So not so much that, more like that. So if we had a paving slab, like that, then when I've drawn that, I sort of use irregularities that have just sort of happened by moving my hand around and extend those a little bit. So that there might be a piece of the paving slab that is worn away. So I could sort of do that. And I mean, it's tempting to do it on the other side there as well, actually. Something like that.
Yes, it gives a sense of depth, doesn't it? And as I say, worn away down. Yeah,
exactly. And when you're drawing sort of hundreds of paving slabs, like I sometimes am, you just sort of go over and try and create cracks here and there, to make them less uniform. And then every now and then, I might actually go like that and have one that's completely broken.
Ah, yes, yeah.
And then you can sort of draw in part of it and hopefully sort of get a better effect or a different effect. And then I think what I'm going to do here is have the slabs not fully reach the wall around this area here. And I tend to sort of have them gradually sort of break up. And I find an example. Maybe not. Maybe I'll just do it. So let's have slab there, one there, and then as we get towards this wall, I guess I sort of imagine that it's been sort of reclaimed and they've just sort of broken up, and soil and grass has started to sort of go over them a little bit. Something like that. Maybe the same down this end.
Yeah, we do have when we're doing all the tiles in the foam, and you sort of set them all out in your grid system, and use your pencil to break in and do all the little scratches and that.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, having looked at a lot of your art, you're very, very consistent with all of your tiles. You've obviously done so many.
Yeah, I guess I probably have. Yeah, I think I've always been quite a neat person. Whenever I have done any kind of drawing, my drawings tend to be quite precise and
it definitely shows.
neat. Even when I'm drawing ruins. Yeah. Cool. There you go. That's pretty much. I think that's pretty much it, really.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'd probably shade it in. But ordinarily, what I would do at this point is go away for half an hour so that the ink is definitely dry before I rub out the pencil marks.
Yes.
So I'll do. I mean, I guess I could just shade over the pencil, but I'm quite fastidious about stuff. I think that's safe. I think we're okay. Sometimes disaster strikes if you try and rub out and do a horrible inky smear at the top of the work.
Unfortunately, I don't have those fantastic ink pens that you have, but what I will do is I'll put in my wooden section.
Okay.
And maybe I'll use one of the thicker pens to just do my walls. I think I can get away with that. So, well, that is a 5, isn't it? Let's put these in, because that'll help define it a bit better. I think looking at the colouring in does add considerable amount, doesn't it? It really brings the piece to life.
It's a very, very satisfying sort of stage, and I mean my early sort of pictures where I was sort of taking it more seriously, like this is one of the first ones that I did.
Yeah.
Away from 4 Against Darkness, when I was just sort of like trying to draw for the pleasure of it. I didn't do any shading, and they look pretty cool, but the shading definitely sort of elevates and finishes quite a satisfying way. Right, so I'm going to use, I always start with the lightest pen. So this is a cool grey 1.
Right.
I think that's how they do their system. The 1 is always the lightest, and then the higher the number, the darker the shade. So as I said, my light source is always up at the top, or whatever I imagine to be the top of the picture. Right. So I guess I've decided that this is this way up in my mind. And so if I were to scan this in, I guess I will scan it in so you can have a copy of it for your followers.
Yes, fantastic, thank you.
Then it will be this way up, and the light source is up here. I've just found out that if you if I just always have the light source in the same place, then I'm less likely to make a mess of it.
Yes, I suppose that, yeah, that does help, doesn't it? You're sort of setting your own rules for your world.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, with trees, well, so I've shaded the south side of the trees, I guess is, but then I would also shade the shade that the tree actually throws on the ground. And then I would probably also have this bit up against this building in shade as well. And when I add the darker shades on top of this, then it will add more distinction and it won't be quite so homogeneous. So yeah, I quite like shading trees. I find it quite relaxing. And I try and sort of keep it moderately scrappy, since it's an organic shape. Maybe it's not, the shading is, like I said, my shading isn't necessarily always completely logical. But I just sort of do what I think looks nice.
What do you find is the hardest thing to do? Or what have you found most challenging? What's been maybe the biggest learning curve?
I mean, there's definitely things I find challenging. Probably some isometric stuff, I would imagine. I think the certain things, just making more complicated isometric sort of configurations can suddenly get very challenging. Trying to find something now. There we go. Let's have a look at that one. That's quite cool. So here's I like the idea of like ruined buildings being built on top of and sort of becoming something new. So the stereotypical idea is like a shell of a building being taken over by bandits and turned into sort of like a bandit hideout.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
So here's like an isometric, and the thing that I find challenging in there is sort of keeping a logical progression in the space, so everything sort of fits together nicely, and everything sort of joins up, like this tower here where you can reach it from these ladders, which is reached by this bit over here to this area and then down, and yeah, getting everything to sort of match up and logically fit together, that can be quite challenging.
That's amazing.
Thank you. And then there's always something though, like on this one, this tower here, I forgot to draw a ladder.
Yes.
And as soon as you've drawn the crenellations along here, it's like, well, it's too late now. I can't draw a ladder. It's game over.
Yeah.
So, no ladder up to that tower. They have to carry this ladder up and then use that or something.
Awesome.
Okay.
Roger, thank you so much for your resub there. Wow, 38 months. That's really impressive. Thank you so much. Yes, shimmy up the post. Indeed, that's the way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. I like people sort of creatively getting around, like little, because there was one bit in one of my maps where a ladder joined two levels, but if you're not careful with isometric larger isometric illustrations, you sort of lose the logic. And I joined 2 levels with a ladder, and those 2 levels were actually on the same level.
Right.
And I didn't realise until after I'd put the ladder in. And then, someone on Facebook or something will sort of find it annoying and complain. Well, sorry. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Made a mistake. Okay, so a little bit of shading around the ruins. And then... So I'm tempted actually just to shade the entire cliff edge. And then pick out some darker bits with some highlights in a second. And shall I do... let's do a bit of the bottom as well.
Not mine, because yes, you can do it darker, can't you?
Yeah, so logically, I think those stones would probably be in complete shade, but I'm not going to. Just to make them a bit more distinctive. I'm not going to do that.
Yes, I did it with one slide lighter and darker on the other, because yeah, it just looks better, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And then I also, although I don't tend to shade in the ground, I sometimes do sort of highlight these little like broken bits.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Just to make them sort of pop out a little bit more.
Yeah. Ah, yes.
And then I sometimes, not always, but sometimes do the same with the stones, the pet slabs, just to make them pop out a little bit more. And there we go. Then I would move up to a number 2, cool grey 2, and start to just build up the shade a little bit.
See, we're getting so engrossed now in doing this. It absolutely is very relaxing, very satisfying as you can see it coming together.
Oh yeah.
I feel there's a trip to an art store this weekend for sure.
Yeah, my local art shop has done very nicely out of me recently.
Yeah, imagine.
There we go. And I mean, I did a forest scene over Christmas. I had some time off work and I spent ages on it. And there must have been, I don't know, 60 or 70 or more trees. Spent hours doing the shading on trees.
Rogue is saying it's similar to relaxing when painting his minis. Yes, totally agree.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, painting minis, I've sort of consigned to the being realistic about it and saying I'm never going to have time to do that. You know, you've got to specialize at some point, and I guess I have now specialized on drawing the maps. But I would love to be able to paint minis. I went through a Warhammer phase in my sort of early teens, and did some painting. So not since then. And then I tend to just sort of alternate dark patches on the cliffs based upon the lines that I drew earlier. it's just, I think it just looks nice. I don't think it really looks like cliffs, but I guess you can tell that they are cliffs.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. There we go. And that's sort of why I like drawing pictures at this sort of size. This is why this is my favorite book, because you can, or I can, draw something and have a finished sort of little ditty in the space of an hour and a half, or yeah. It's satisfying for something to come together so quickly.
Yeah. No, I
to realise a small idea.
Would you say that's a good place to start then, as a newcomer? Start with a small book. I suppose you've got less paper to fill up, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. This is, yeah. I mean, it's small, and you can quickly, try out ideas and draw different things.
What size was that one again?
I think it's on the back. It says this is 10.5 by 14.8 centimeters, so 10 by 15 centimeters. Okay. I suspect it's like A6.
Yeah, it's like a 2x3, isn't it? Type of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's more or less finished. Really.
Yeah. That looks great.
Yeah. I'd probably faff around a little bit longer with it, but yeah.
That's really cool. Well, I mean, I obviously, yes, we've got so into doing this. Chat, do you have any last questions for Paul? Because, of course, we're very conscious of the time. We've gone probably beyond what we initially thought we might have done.
That's okay. That's okay. It's been fun.
It really has. No, I really appreciate it, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that experience. It's, yeah, it's great to... So Roger's just saying, here we go. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing your process with us.
You're very welcome. It's been fun. Yeah, I will scan this in.
Thank you.
And share it with you, and you can pass it on to people.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely will. No, it looks amazing. Mystical is saying, so much fun to watch you create. Thank you so much.
Cool. Well, you're very welcome. Oh, someone's been drawing along.
So, Roger, were you having a go? So, Muggy, I'll take a pic of mine and put it in the Discord. Excellent, please do. And what we'll do is we'll post that up with Paul's and myself. I'll probably do that post on Friday because we've got a game tomorrow night. So, yes, we'll do it on Friday. So, anybody else who's joining along, if you wanted to have a go tomorrow night or whatever to do a sketch, put it into the Discord, and we'll put it all together and we'll do a post on Friday.
Yeah, brilliant. I look forward to seeing other people's creations.
Awesome. Paul, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Really was a pleasure to learn all about your creative journey, and then to sort of learn and to draw with you. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.
That was great. Yeah, I enjoyed it too. Thanks for having me on.
Great. All right. Well, we'll let you go.
Right.
let you have the rest of your evening. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much
again. David. Yeah. Take care, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye now. Okay, so our thanks to Paul from Ways Unseen for spending the time with us this evening, telling us, as I say, all about his creative journey as a fantasy cartographer. and then spending our time teaching us how to make some wonderful ruins within our wilderness setting. If you have indeed spent some time to create your own, and do share them in the Discord, and we'll do a post on Friday to go and take a look at all of those. Tomorrow evening, myself and Mystical are going to be termites. We are going to be competing to build the fastest and greatest wall in our termite mound. So do join us from 7 o'clock GMT +1 and see how we do. But until then, thanks for watching and bye for now.